The galaxy was wide and endless, full of strange stars and silent worlds, but on one small blue planet, something very old was waking. Humanity had lived in the shadows of larger civilizations for too long. They had watched, listened, and kept quiet, while ancient alien empires ruled the stars. The galaxy thought humans were weak, slow, and harmless. But they were wrong. It started quietly, almost like an accident. A small human research ship traveled beyond the normal trade routes, far outside the borders of safe space. The crew was young, brave, and hungry for discovery. They found a signal, faint and broken, coming from a forgotten sector. It was not supposed to be there. No star charts had marked it, no alien maps had claimed it. The crew followed the signal, not knowing they were walking into a trap. When they arrived, they saw ruins floating in the dark. Strange metal fragments drifted across empty space, the remains of something old and powerful. The crew recorded everything, but before they could leave, something else arrived. A ship, dark and sharp, slid out of the void. It was not a friendly ship. The aliens on board were called the Karth. Cold-blooded, silent, and cruel, they had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. The Karth hated intruders. They believed this broken sector belonged to them, even though they had long abandoned it. The human ship was small, unarmed, and helpless. The Karth gave no warning. Their cannons lit up the void, tearing into human metal. The screams of the crew echoed in the comms, but no one came to save them. The Karth thought it was over. They thought humans would be silent, just like before. They thought humanity would bow, or hide, or forget. But they made one mistake. The human ship sent a final burst of data before it was destroyed. The message carried the ruins, the attack, and the screams back to Earth. When the leaders of Earth saw it, something inside humanity broke, and something else awoke. The galaxy had always said humans were slow to anger. They were wrong again. Humans had anger, deep and ancient, hidden in their blood. The Karth had given it a spark. For the first time in history, all the nations of Earth stood together. Old wars and old divisions were pushed aside. The message of the dying crew was replayed in every home, every station, every colony. Children watched it. Parents wept. Soldiers clenched their fists. Humanity did not forget. Humanity prepared. At first, the galaxy laughed. Other species whispered in their courts and their markets, calling humans foolish. They cannot fight the Karth, they said. They have no great fleets, no ancient weapons, no star forges. The galaxy thought humanity would burn itself out in one final act of madness. But the galaxy had not studied humanity well. They did not understand what happens when humans are pushed too far. They did not know what kind of fire lives inside them. Years passed in silence. The galaxy watched for war, but nothing came. Human ships did not attack. Human colonies stayed quiet. It almost looked like the humans had given up. The Karth continued their rule, proud and careless. But in the shadows, humanity was working. Factories on Earth ran without rest. New colonies sent resources back. Engineers built ships that had never been seen before. Not large and beautiful, but sharp, fast, and brutal. Soldiers trained in dark rooms, in cold stations, learning to fight in places where no other species could survive. Humanity was not copying the galaxy's old ways. They were building something different, something made only for one purpose: vengeance. The galaxy did not notice. They thought humans had returned to silence. But then, one night, the silence ended. A Karth patrol ship vanished near the edge of human space. Then, another. Then a whole fleet. At first, the Karth claimed it was a mistake, a storm, a mechanical failure. But soon, too many ships were gone. The Karth sent more fleets, bigger fleets. None returned. The galaxy began to whisper again, but this time their voices shook. "What are the humans doing?" they asked. "Where are the ships going? Why is the Karth fleet not returning?" The Karth grew nervous, but pride blinded them. They ordered a full invasion of human space, convinced they could crush humanity once and for all. Their war drums echoed across the void, their banners spread wide. The galaxy waited for the slaughter of mankind. But what came next was not slaughter. It was something else. Something the galaxy had never seen before. The first battle began in silence, at the edge of an empty system. The Karth ships moved forward, sharp and dark as knives. And then, from the shadows, human ships appeared. Small, fast, and endless, they fell upon the Karth like wolves. The Karth fired, but their cannons hit nothing. Humans moved too quickly, too strangely. They fought not with honor, not with tradition, but with fury. The galaxy would later call it the Night of Ashes. That night, the Karth lost everything. That night, humanity showed its face. And it was not the face the galaxy remembered. The galaxy did not sleep after the Night of Ashes. Rumors moved faster than light. Traders whispered in hidden stations. Captains spoke in broken voices, telling stories of Karth fleets torn apart by shadows. No one believed it at first. No one thought the humans could rise so quickly. But the ruins of Karth ships drifting in space were proof enough. The galaxy had seen the impossible. The Karth were furious. They had ruled through fear for thousands of years. They were predators, and they believed no prey could ever strike back. Yet something had changed. Something new had entered the galaxy's game of power. The Karth had made humanity angry, and the galaxy was watching the storm grow. On Earth, the message of victory spread like fire. The names of the lost crew were spoken in every home. Their sacrifice was no longer a tragedy, it was the spark of vengeance. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. For the first time, humans were not divided by borders or flags. They were one people, with one voice, and one enemy. But humanity did not celebrate for long. They knew the Karth would not stop. The Karth were proud, and pride is dangerous. Humanity had won one battle, but 1,000 more were waiting. The leaders of Earth prepared their people for a war that could end everything. Factories grew louder. Ships rose from shipyards like dark birds. Not massive cruisers like the old alien empires built, but something new, fast, clever, and merciless. Human engineers did not waste time on beauty or tradition. They built weapons with one goal: to break the enemy. The soldiers changed too. They trained in silence, in emptiness, in the cold places where no other species could endure. Humans learned to fight in shadows, to breathe in thin air, to hide where no sensors could reach. They were not like the armies of the galaxy. They were something else. Something that even the Karth began to fear. Still, the galaxy mocked them. Alien rulers in distant halls laughed, saying, "This war will end quickly. The humans have passion, but no wisdom. They are fire, but fire burns out." They told themselves the Karth would crush the humans soon, and everything would return to order. But then came the second silence. A Karth war fleet, larger than anything the humans had faced, entered the Orion sector. Hundreds of ships, with cannons enough to burn planets, moved forward to destroy human colonies. The galaxy watched. This would be the end of mankind, they thought. But then, nothing. The fleet vanished. No signals. No survivors. Just silence. The Karth were shaken. They sent scouts, then reinforcements, but none returned. The Orion sector became a graveyard, sealed and empty. Whispers spread. The humans had done something terrible, something the galaxy could not understand. Some said humans had found old weapons in the ruins. Others said they had made a deal with darker powers. But the truth was simpler. The truth was human anger, sharpened into a weapon. Human ships had hidden in the void, silent and patient. They struck not with strength, but with precision. They did not fight the way the galaxy expected. They fought like hunters, like predators who had been prey for too long. And when the battle was done, they erased the evidence. The Karth fleets were not only destroyed, they were erased from the map. The galaxy began to fear. If the Karth could be destroyed, who was safe? If humans could do this, what else were they hiding? Still, the Karth did not stop. Pride and fear drove them forward. They gathered their greatest fleet, a force so large that no empire had seen such power in centuries. Planets shook as the Karth prepared for war. Their leaders swore they would erase humanity, burn Earth to ash, and scatter its people across the stars. But in the dark, humanity was waiting. On a cold station near the edge of the galaxy, a single human commander stood before his fleet. His face was calm, his voice steady, but his eyes carried the weight of history. He remembered the screams of the first crew. He remembered the message that had begun it all. And he knew one truth: the Karth thought they were fighting a war of ships and weapons. But they were wrong. This was not just war. This was vengeance. As the Karth's great fleet moved forward, human ships began to vanish from the maps. Not destroyed, just gone. They slipped into shadows, into dark corners of space, unseen. The Karth laughed at first, believing the humans had run. But then, one by one, their ships began to disappear again. A battle was coming. The greatest battle the galaxy had ever seen. And when it came, the galaxy would learn the truth. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was something else entirely. And the Karth were about to find out. The galaxy held its breath. For centuries, no one had dared to challenge the Karth. Their fleets were endless, their weapons sharp, their rule unshaken. But now, humans had done the impossible. They had destroyed fleets, erased patrols, and turned silence into a weapon. Still, the galaxy believed the Karth's greatest armada would end it all. No one could stand against such power, not even the new fury of mankind. The Karth fleet moved like a storm across the stars. Thousands of ships, black and sharp, gathered into one unstoppable wave. They carried enough firepower to burn a world to dust in a single day. The Karth commanders spoke with pride, promising to erase humanity from history. "We will silence their anger," they said. "We will remind the galaxy who rules." But the humans were ready. 4 years, they had planned for this moment. They did not build ships to match the size of Karth battleships. They did not try to copy the old empires. Instead, they built ships that moved like shadows, fast and ruthless. They created weapons that cut through shields and tore armor apart. They studied the Karth, learned their weaknesses, and built strategies the galaxy had never seen before. The battle began on the edge of a red star system. The Karth fleet arrived first, filling the void with their endless numbers. Their banners of war stretched across the stars. They expected to find human colonies, human stations, human fleets waiting in fear. But the system was empty. Silent. The Karth laughed. "The humans are hiding," they said. "They are afraid." But deep in the silence, human ships were waiting. The first strike came without warning. A Karth battleship, one of their largest, suddenly split apart in a flash of light. Its engines exploded, its armor scattered into the void. No human ship was seen, only the wreckage drifting into silence. Panic rippled through the Karth fleet. They fired in all directions, their cannons lighting the dark, but they hit nothing. Then another battleship fell. And another. The humans had surrounded them, hidden in the shadows of asteroids, in the heat of the red star, in the blackness of space. They moved faster than Karth sensors could follow. They struck like ghosts, invisible and merciless. For the first time in history, the Karth felt fear. The battle raged for hours. Karth cannons filled the void, but every time they thought they had the humans cornered, the humans vanished. Every time they believed victory was near, another of their ships exploded. The humans were not fighting to defend. They were not fighting to survive. They were fighting to destroy. One Karth commander shouted across the comms, "This is not war, it is slaughter." But no one answered. His ship vanished moments later. The galaxy listened in silence as the battle reports came in. Whole fleets of the Karth were erased. Their proud armada, the force that was meant to end mankind, was falling apart piece by piece. The galaxy's rulers sat in their thrones, unable to believe what they were hearing. The humans were winning. On Earth, the message of the battle reached the people. Families gathered around screens. Colonies stopped their work to listen. When the reports spoke of victory, the people did not cheer loudly. They whispered the names of the fallen, and they whispered a promise. Never again would humanity bow. Still, the battle was not easy. Humans paid with blood. Their ships were fast, but not indestructible. Thousands of men and women fought and died in the void. But each death was another reason to fight harder. Each loss turned their fury sharper. At the center of the fleet, the human flagship moved like a shadow among giants. Its commander watched the chaos with steady eyes. His voice was calm as he gave orders, but his heart carried the fire of every lost life. He knew this was more than victory. This was a message. And the message was clear: the galaxy had underestimated humanity. By the end of the battle, silence filled the void once more. The Karth's greatest fleet, gone. Broken apart, scattered as ruins across the stars. Only a few survivors fled into the dark, carrying with them the memory of terror. They had seen something the galaxy had never believed possible. The humans had fought like predators. They had fought with anger, with vengeance, with fire that could not be put out. The galaxy would never forget the night of ashes. But now, they would remember something else. This was the day of shadows. And for the first time in history, the Karth were not the hunters. They were the hunted. The galaxy was trembling. The news of the Karth's great defeat spread from one end of the stars to the other. Traders whispered in fear. Soldiers spoke in hushed voices. Entire governments sat in silence, unable to believe what they had heard. The Karth had never lost before. For thousands of years, they had ruled by terror, by crushing every spark of resistance. But now, the spark they tried to destroy had become a fire, and it was burning out of control. The humans had done what no one thought possible. They had destroyed the Karth's greatest fleet. And they had done it in a way the galaxy had never seen. They did not fight with massive warships like the old empires. They fought with speed, with cunning, with fury. They fought like hunters who had been caged too long. And when the battle ended, the void was filled with silence and ruins. The Karth were humiliated, but more than that, they were afraid. Fear was new to them. Fear made them reckless. Their leaders shouted for vengeance. "We will burn their worlds," they cried. "We will erase them." But their voices shook with something unfamiliar: doubt. The survivors of the battle brought back stories that unsettled even the bravest. They spoke of human ships moving like shadows, weapons tearing through shields, soldiers striking without warning. Some swore they saw humans board Karth ships, fighting hand-to-hand in corridors filled with smoke and blood. The survivors said one thing again and again: the humans are not fighting for land. They are not fighting for power. They are fighting for anger. The galaxy listened. And the galaxy began to wonder. Some species whispered that maybe humanity was more dangerous than the Karth. Others argued that the humans were only lucky, that their fire would burn out soon. But deep inside, no one truly believed that anymore. Everyone felt it. The galaxy had changed. Meanwhile, humanity did not slow down. Factories worked day and night, building more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. Every victory, every loss, only made them more determined. On Earth, children grew up learning the story of the first crew, the ones who had died in silence. Their names were taught in schools, carved into monuments, spoken as prayers. Humanity carried their memory like a blade. But even as they prepared for war, humans did something else that surprised the galaxy. They reached out. The Karth had many enemies, silent and broken, scattered across the stars. Civilizations that had been crushed, planets that had been enslaved, species that had been silenced. For centuries, they had lived in fear, unable to resist. Now, they watched humanity rise, and hope stirred where none had lived before. Human envoys traveled in small ships, not with threats, but with promises. They spoke to the broken empires. They said, "We know your pain. We know your anger. Stand with us, and together, we will end the Karth." Slowly, the galaxy answered. A small fleet of an insectoid species appeared near human space. They had been enslaved for generations, their wings cut, their voices silenced. Now they came to fight. Soon after, another race, reptilian and scarred from Karth wars, sent soldiers. And then, another. One by one, the oppressed began to rise. The galaxy had been silent for too long. Humanity had given them a voice. The Karth could feel the shift. For the first time, they were not feared, they were hated. Old enemies gathered against them, led by the humans they once mocked. And the humans did not lead with promises of mercy. They led with fire. The next battles came quickly. Small Karth fleets were ambushed and erased. Human allies joined in, fighting alongside humanity, learning their ways of war. The galaxy began to whisper a new word, one that spread faster than light: resistance. But humanity was not satisfied with small victories. They wanted more. They wanted the Karth to feel what they had felt. They wanted the Karth to taste fear the way the dying crew had tasted it. Humanity wanted the Karth to understand anger. So, the humans made a plan. They would not simply fight the Karth in empty space. They would not wait for the next fleet to come. They would strike deeper. They would take the war into the heart of Karth territory. It was madness, the galaxy said. No one had ever dared attack the Karth on their own ground. No empire had survived it. But humanity was not like the old empires. Humanity did not play by the same rules. And so, in silence, human fleets began to gather. The galaxy held its breath once more. They knew the humans were planning something. They could feel it in the way fleets vanished into shadows, in the way human colonies prepared for war. Something was coming. Something terrible. The Karth laughed, but the laughter was thin. Deep down, they knew. The humans were coming for them. The Karth home systems were a place of fear. For centuries, no one had dared to come close. Their territory was guarded by massive fleets, endless patrols, and walls of firepower. Entire civilizations had tried to rise against them, but every attempt ended in silence. The galaxy believed the Karth home systems could never be touched. But humanity was not the galaxy. Humanity was something else. In the dark, human fleets gathered. They did not move like the grand armadas of the old empires. They moved like shadows, silent and unseen. They gathered not in one place, but in many, scattered across the void, hidden from Karth eyes. The plan was not to fight the Karth's strength. The plan was to break their heart. Commanders spoke in calm voices, but every soldier felt the fire inside. They remembered the screams of the first human crew. They remembered the night of ashes and the day of shadows. They knew why they were here. This was not just war. This was vengeance. The operation began in silence. Small human strike groups slipped past Karth borders. They did not fight fleets head-on. Instead, they targeted the arteries of the empire. Fuel depots. Shipyards. Supply stations. Each one burned in sudden fire, erased before alarms could spread. Karth ships scrambled to respond, but the humans were already gone, leaving only ruins and silence behind. The galaxy watched in awe. No one had ever seen the Karth bleed before. No one had ever seen their power weakened. And yet, humans struck again and again, like blades in the dark. The Karth leaders raged. Their commanders shouted across the stars, sending orders, sending fleets. But the fleets returned broken, or did not return at all. Pride kept them moving forward, but pride could not hide the fear. In the quiet halls of alien empires, leaders began to whisper. The humans are not only fighting, they said. They are teaching us how to fight. They are showing us how to strike the Karth. And slowly, more allies joined. Small fleets, old weapons, forgotten soldiers, all gathered behind humanity's fire. But the humans' new allies were not enough. To end the Karth, they needed to strike deeper. They needed to shatter the Karth's pride in front of the whole galaxy. So, the humans chose a target, a Karth world. Not just any world, a fortress world, one of their strongest. It was covered in fleets, lined with weapons, wrapped in layers of defense. The galaxy said it could never be touched. But humanity had already heard that before. The fleet moved in silence. Human ships spread like shadows, hidden by the void. They approached the fortress world not with speed, but with patience. The Karth defenders watched their sensors, but they saw nothing. They believed they were safe. And then, the sky broke. The first strike was not a ship, but a storm of fire. Human weapons pierced through shields, tearing apart the outer defenses. Explosions filled the black. The Karth screamed in confusion, firing wildly, but their targets vanished as quickly as they appeared. Human ships moved too fast, too sharp. The fortress world shook. Defense towers collapsed in flames. Fleet commanders shouted, but their orders were drowned by chaos. Everywhere they looked, human ships appeared, struck, and vanished again. The battle was not a battle. It was a hunt. And the hunters were human. On the ground, the Karth panicked. They had never imagined an enemy reaching their soil. Entire cities went dark as human forces struck supply lines and command centers. It was not an invasion, it was a message. The message was simple: you are not untouchable. The galaxy gasped as reports came in. A human fleet had done the impossible. They had struck a Karth fortress world and lived. More than lived, they had won. The Karth defenders were broken, their pride shattered, their world left burning. The survivors whispered of human soldiers moving through fire, fighting with fury that no shield could stop. They spoke of human eyes, cold and unshaken, carrying anger older than stars. They said the Karth had looked into the face of humanity, and seen death itself. The fortress world fell silent. And in that silence, the galaxy finally understood: humanity was not just fighting to survive. Humanity was fighting to erase the Karth. The Karth leaders swore vengeance. They promised their people that humanity would be destroyed. But their voices no longer carried the same weight. For the first time, the galaxy had seen the Karth bleed. For the first time, the galaxy had seen them lose. And for the first time, the galaxy believed the Karth could fall. The galaxy was no longer the same. The humans had struck a Karth fortress world, and it had fallen. Entire systems trembled at the news. Rulers who once laughed at humanity now sat in silence. Traders whispered of fire in the void. Soldiers repeated stories of shadows and ghosts that tore fleets apart. The Karth had been touched where they were strongest, and that wound would never heal. For the first time in thousands of years, the Karth were not feared. They were hated. On Earth, the victory was not celebrated with noise. It was honored in silence. The names of fallen soldiers were spoken with respect. Families wept, but their tears did not weaken them, they sharpened their resolve. Every child grew up knowing that humanity was fighting not only for survival, but for justice. And still, the war grew larger. More species joined humanity's cause. Broken civilizations that had been silent for centuries rose again. Their fleets were small, their weapons old, but their spirits were fierce. They had lived under Karth chains for too long, and now they had hope. Humanity gave them that hope. But hope was not enough. The Karth were still vast, still cruel, still powerful. For every fleet humanity destroyed, more came from the depths of their empire. For every world humanity struck, the Karth tried to burn another. The galaxy shook under the weight of war. The humans did not stop. They fought in shadows. They fought in fire. They fought in places no other species could endure. Asteroid belts, black holes, frozen systems. Wherever the Karth thought no enemy could survive, humans were waiting. Their ships were smaller, but faster. Their soldiers were fewer, but stronger. Their anger made them unstoppable. The Karth grew desperate. They began to use weapons the galaxy had not seen in centuries. Planets were burned. Moons shattered. Entire colonies were erased in fire. The galaxy wept at the destruction. But the humans did not break. For every world the Karth destroyed, humanity struck 2 more of theirs. And then came the most daring act of all. The humans chose a target deeper than ever before. Not a fortress, not a fleet, but a Karth capital. One of the 3 great seats of their empire. The galaxy called it madness. No one can touch a Karth capital, they said. It is impossible. But humanity had already made the impossible possible. The fleet moved in silence once more. Allied ships followed, inspired by humanity's fire. Together, they crossed the void into the heart of darkness. The Karth capital was ready, its defenses strong, its fleets countless. But the humans did not fight the way the Karth expected. They did not attack head-on. They cut supply lines. They struck command centers. They scattered the defenders before the battle had even begun. Human ships vanished and reappeared, sowing confusion. Allied fleets hit hard and fast, guided by human strategy. And slowly, the unshakable walls of the Karth capital began to crumble. On the ground, human soldiers fought through cities built of stone and steel. They faced Karth warriors in close combat, blades and fire clashing in the smoke. The Karth roared with pride and fury, but the humans did not roar back. They fought in silence, every strike a reminder of the crew who had been lost long ago. The galaxy watched in disbelief. The unthinkable was happening. A Karth capital was falling. The battle lasted days. Streets burned. Skies lit with fire. The Karth fought with the fury of an empire that had never known defeat, but humanity fought with something greater. Humanity fought with anger that had been forged into steel. And in the end, the Karth capital burned. Its banners fell. Its towers crumbled. The survivors fled into the void, carrying stories of terror. The humans had done what no one else could. They had taken the heart of the Karth and set it on fire. The galaxy roared with shock. Some called it madness. Some called it justice. But all knew one thing: the Karth were no longer invincible. Humanity had proven it. Still, the war was not over. The Karth still had power. They still had fleets, still had worlds, still had weapons that could end millions of lives in a moment. But they had lost their pride. They had lost their fearlessness. And that wound was deeper than any blade. The galaxy knew the end was coming. And the galaxy knew it would not be gentle. The humans were not finished. The humans were only just beginning. The galaxy was waiting. The fall of a Karth capital had shaken the stars. No one had ever imagined such a thing could happen, but humanity had made it real. The galaxy's rulers sat in silence, their courts filled with whispers. Traders, soldiers, and families everywhere spoke of one truth: the Karth could be defeated. But the war was not over. The Karth still had power. Their empire stretched across countless systems, their fleets still darkened the void, their weapons could still burn worlds. Yet something inside them was broken. Pride, the very core of their strength, had cracked. Fear had entered their blood. And humanity was not going to stop. The plan for the final strike was whispered only among commanders. The humans had no desire to drag the war forever. They had no interest in balance or peace. They wanted the end. They wanted the Karth erased from history, so no child would ever fear them again. The target was clear: the Karth's homeworld. The first world of their empire, the place where their rule began, the seat of their power. No one had dared to even speak of attacking it. The galaxy believed it untouchable, wrapped in walls of fire, guarded by fleets so vast they blocked the stars. But humanity had already touched the untouchable. And they were ready to do it again. The fleets gathered in silence. Human ships, dark and sharp, joined by the vessels of their allies. Broken species who had suffered under Karth chains now stood beside humanity. Their fleets were smaller, weaker, but their anger was just as fierce. For the first time in history, the galaxy stood together, not in fear, but in rage. The strike began at dawn, when the Karth homeworld skies glowed red from its sun. Human ships poured out of the void, faster than the Karth could react. The defenders fought with desperation, filling the black with fire. The battle was chaos. Explosions lit the sky, shadows darted through the void, screams echoed across comms. The Karth fought with fury, but humanity fought with something greater. Humanity fought with purpose. Every soldier remembered the first human crew. Every commander remembered the silence of the lost. Every child who had grown up under the shadow of war now carried that memory like a weapon. They were not fighting only for victory. They were fighting for every wound, every scar, every voice the Karth had silenced. The human flagship pushed through the fire. Its commander, his face worn but unshaken, spoke calmly to his fleet. "No retreat," he said. "No mercy. Today we end them." His words spread through the comms, carried in every voice, every heart. The humans broke through the outer fleets. Their allies followed, striking with newfound courage. On the ground, human soldiers landed, fighting through cities carved in stone and blood. The Karth resisted with all their strength, but the humans did not falter. Step by step, they pushed forward. The final battle lasted days. The skies above the Karth homeworld burned with fire. The oceans boiled from falling wreckage. Towers crumbled under bombardments. The Karth fought until their weapons were empty, until their voices were hoarse, until their pride was ashes. And then, silence. The Karth homeworld fell. Human banners were raised where Karth banners had once ruled. The galaxy held its breath as the message spread. The Karth were gone. The empire that had ruled for thousands of years, the predators that had enslaved half the stars, the terror that had silenced generations, they were no more. Humanity had ended them. Across the galaxy, worlds erupted in cries of freedom. Chains were broken. Flags were burned. The names of human soldiers were spoken with reverence. Children of distant planets whispered the word human, not with fear, but with awe. But humanity did not stay to claim an empire. They did not take new worlds, or demand tribute, or carve their name into thrones. They left the ruins behind, and they returned to their own skies. Because humanity had not fought for power. Humanity had not fought to rule. Humanity had fought for something older, something deeper. They had fought because someone had dared to make them angry. And when humanity is angry, the galaxy learned, they are unstoppable. 4 years to come, the story was told. Around fires, in halls, on starships drifting in silence, the tale of the humans spread. The galaxy remembered the night of ashes, the day of shadows, and the fall of the Karth. And every species understood the lesson. Do not mistake humanity's patience for weakness. Do not mistake their silence for fear. For if you push them too far, if you awaken the fire in their blood, you will not face an army. You will face extinction. The Karth had made humanity angry once. The galaxy never saw them again.